If seeing Aaron Rodgers face down in the dirt after another embarrassing loss makes you happy, then like the video. I know his family probably loves this. Hell, I believe all NFL fans out there have a little thing that they can't stand about Aaron Rodgers. But for Viking fans, even in a week where y'all didn't even play, Packers lose, Lions stink, and I think the Bears are going to lose tonight on Monday Night Football. So if that doesn't give you a reason to like the video, check your polls, because today's show, we're going to be rocking and rolling. We got a lot of a lot of awesome things to talk about today. You're watching Vikings Now. Mitchell Renz here from Chat Sports, and we're going to go through a lot of rumors on today's show. Concerning the fact that Minnesota didn't play coming off a bye, there is a lot to get into. Some bad news, some good news. We'll talk about OBJ. We'll talk about Chase Claypool. We'll look at some future players that you could potentially bring in a free agency, maybe like a Linval Joseph. However, before I get into all of that, there is definitely some concerning news that we're going to address here early on. Ben Gosling tweeted out that the Vikings said they are aware of tackle Oli Udoh's arrest in Miami last night and are gathering more information. Dade County court records show Udoh was charged with a misdemeanor count of resisting arrest. Now, this one came out on October 23rd, and anytime you hear this entire story, which if you haven't heard this story, essentially what ended up happening was after the Miami game, sounds like Udoh walked into a restroom, refused to leave the women's restroom, even though the woman who he followed in there told him to leave. And if that's not one of the creepiest things you've ever heard, I don't know what it is. If it's up to me, you don't need to have this type of concentration around this Vikings team, is considering the fact of how well that they are playing. And if he was a good player, the NFL bends rules. But for a guy like Oli, who, let's just face it, he's not any good, a player that we've talked about multiple times getting cut anyway, I'd cut his ass, and I'd leave him there in Miami. Coming up next here on the show, just some more Vikings rumors to get into. And anytime that I feel like I mention the name Odell Beckham Jr., everyone's eyes start popping up. And for a team that right now, let's face it, you are a team that should be very aggressive right now at the NFL trade deadline coming up on November 1st. And apparently, the Vikings and OBJ are talking. Vikings have had internal discussions about signing OBJ. This is according to a rumor out there. And then I think when you look at this, you keep him away from the Packers. I know from past experiences doing the show, from doing past Chat Sports shows, from previous reports, the Packers have always been a team that OBJ pops up to because, let's face it, you don't have Devontae Adams anymore. And if you could get him, keep him away from Green Bay, it helps you out. And here's the hope. He's going to be ready by late November, early December for that late push. Now, when you consider the fact of, all right, what kind of OBJ am I going to get? You're not going to get the Beckham that you saw making that ridiculous one-handed catch with the New York Giants. That guy's long gone. OBJ with Cleveland, though, in 6 games, 34 targets, 17 grabs, 232 yards last season. And then when he went over to Los Angeles, much different story. 31, 359 yards, 6 touchdowns. This might surprise you. Maybe Baker Mayfield wasn't that great of a quarterback and it was impacting OBJ's numbers. I know, it's crazy. In terms of OBJ needs, what if I'm Odell Beckham Jr.? I know, I'm not. I kind of wish I was. Or if I was his agent, what would be the top things I would look for? Number one would be, I wouldn't want him to be the number one option. It's okay. He thrived when he wasn't the number one option in Los Angeles. Cooper Kupp, you can make the argument that Robert Woods was there, and then it was OBJ. A familiar offense. Why wouldn't you not want to play in another Kevin O'Connell offense? He was spectacular in the regular season and in the playoffs, and you want to play for a contender. Is Minnesota the top team right now? I would argue, like, the team that I'd be willing to bet the most money on, that they're going to win their division. Is there another team out there? When you look at records, look at everything, I think it's Minnesota. So when you look at the Vikings receiving leaders this season, Justin Jefferson's going to be the dude, right? 654 yards, 2 touchdowns. He would be a beautiful complementary piece, though, I believe, right next to Adam Thielen. He would be better than KJ Osborne in my book, though I am actually one of the guys who's probably a little bit higher on Osborne. And then you have Irv Smith Jr., your tight end with 2 receiving touchdowns. Here's my question to you. Do you want to sign OBJ? Type Y for yes, or you can let me know by typing that N for no. I don't know how much money you're going to have to give up to get him, considering the fact that it's going to be over the final few months. If OBJ, for 2 months of football, you pay him $2-3 million, I know, it's only for a few months. that helps you win this division, if it helps you get into the playoffs, if it helps you just continue to succeed going forward, I personally think that it's worth the money. Now, I don't know how much money that it's actually going to cost because of how late in the season it's going to be. And if you're worried about a potential injury scare, then sure, you can throw out that idea as well. But for Odell Beckham Jr., you know for a fact that he's a hell of a player, and I don't really think many people would dispute that. So let me know, y'all, down in the comments section, do you want to sign OBJ? For me personally, I think it makes sense for Minnesota. If you're an NFL team right now and you believe that you're a contender, you can make a move for OBJ and help continue to make this offense click, because it's not only about clicking, it's about staying on that elite level. Now, maybe you don't want Odell Beckham Jr. because you want somebody on the defensive side of the football. And here's the next name, Linval Joseph. Who wants to bring in Big Henry? He still lives in Minnesota. He's always posting videos on his Instagram, working out at the Vikings training facility. He's going to be able to help the Vikings run defense. Personally, I thought entering the offseason, Minnesota had one of the worst defensive tackle units, and they've actually played a lot better than anticipated. If you can find a dude, though, that can play 20 to 25 snaps on early downs to stop the run, he's actually also been halfway decent at being able to get after the quarterback when you consider the fact of what defensive tackles do. I mean, these numbers to me are pretty spectacular. 2021, 51 tackles. 2020, 62 tackles. If you can find defensive tackles that are getting this much production, it still baffles me that a player like Joseph is still out there on the free agency market, because the numbers he's put up, it also would be a good fit. When you consider the fact of how the Vikings defense ranks, yards per game, 27th, passing yards, 28th, rushing yards, 14th, points per game, 12th. Glass half full is where you're at, number one in your division with these type of numbers. But you shouldn't settle. If anything has taught me about the NFL, man, you should never settle. And if Minnesota thinks that they can add extra talent, I think you got to do it. Now, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so. Keep you up to date on the Vikings. I mean, we got a hell of a winning streak going on. So hit that sub for more Vikings dubs. I know we would appreciate it here at Chat Sports to keep this show rocking and rolling. Let's go to the next story here. It's a trade rumor. Chase Claypool, Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver, is he potentially on the trade market? Sliding down the Steelers' depth chart with the emergence of George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, it puts Claypool in an interesting situation. What I figured what we would do here on today's show is give you the pros and cons of trading for Claypool. First one con, seems like a me guy, not a we guy. I know sometimes that might be a little bit of a cheesy thing to say. I believe it, though. When you're a team that's winning football games and you are going in the right direction, finding me guys, not somebody like an Elijah Moore, and finding somebody who's going to buy into the team. Pros, real talent. Could be a hell of a wide receiver next to Jefferson for years to come. I'll also say this. When he first came out of the NFL out of Notre Dame, I had him labeled as a wide receiver tight end hybrid, somebody who reminded me a lot of Evan Ingram. Tight end was drafted by the Giants. Now he's with the Jacksonville Jaguars. You need an extra tight end. What if you can find a wide receiver tight end hybrid? Cons, trading assets for not a true need. Okay, last one. Keep him away from Green Bay. You do not want a talented wide receiver going to the Green Bay Packers. And he'd be able to fit on the Vikings wide receiver depth chart. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, Jalen Reagor still has a lot of spark there in terms of speed. Claypool adds a lot of speed to your team. Here's my question out there, though. If you had to pick one, would you pick OBJ type number 3, which is the number he was last, or Claypool number 11? You got to trade for Claypool, or you can get OBJ. Long term, it's Claypool. Short term, it's OBJ. What do you think the Vikings need? Now, if you want to go bet on Minnesota this upcoming week, I think personally you should do it. If you want to bet on Minnesota to win the NFC North, go ahead and do it. And you know how I know you should do it? Because we're hooking you guys up with an awesome deal here. If you go to chatsports.com/bet, use promo code CHAT125. It's actually going to get you 125% deposit bonus. Right now, the Vikings are minus 750 odds to win the North. That's crazy. The Packers at plus 450, and then the Lions, and then the Bears. Oh, my. I mean, there is just no excuse not to win this year. This is your year. Green Bay looks lost. Their offense stinks. Aaron Rodgers. I actually think Aaron Rodgers might drive to Las Vegas and beg and plead Davante Adams to come back. He might pay him his own money to come back because that back-to-back MVP, he's kind of looking like an LVP. So when you consider the fact the NFC North results this past week, I can't believe the Packers lost to the Commanders. I mean, that's got to be – I said it last week. Couldn't believe when the Packers lost to the Jets. And I said the week before that, I couldn't believe the Packers lost to the Giants. This is by far the most surprising loss I've seen in a long time by an Aaron Rodgers team. Lions, they lost to the Cowboys in an embarrassing game. And I think the Patriots, who are 9.5-point favorites right now, go bet on New England to beat the Bears tonight with that awesome deal. The North standings. Yeah, I mean, you got to giggle at it, right? Packers 3-4. I think the Bears are about to fall to 2-5. Lions are 1-5. And then there is the Minnesota Vikings. So what is your confidence level right now that the Vikings can win the North? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. A 9.5, man. I think that's what you got to go with. It's got to be a 9.5. Now, if you made it this far in the video, Real One roll call time. If you made it this far, type Real One in the comments section. I know, we ask a lot of y'all, but we also create a lot of free videos for y'all. So if you made it to the end, it lets us know who the real ones are around here. So spam Real One. You might even get a shout out on a future show.